Hello everyone, it is the me, Game Penguin 21, and today, well, this is going to be a very interesting one because this is actually a video that I had planned to release last week, so yeah. But the video still holds up and I wanted to talk about this and I didn't want to re-record the whole thing. So I'm going to use the old recordings that I have that I made about a week ago, a week-ish ago, maybe 2 weeks, but I am still going to use like the same gameplay and like the same stuff because the video was already pretty much all edited and I just needed to get another video out. I don't want to talk about Pal World anymore. I don't want to even review the game, not because it's a bad game or because I don't feel like it deserves review, because it definitely does, but it's one of those things where I'm tired and I just need a video that's easy to make and stuff because I'm getting over a sickness and I need the time to maybe make that sort of thing. And I might make a review on the Pal World later after the whole hype cycle and stuff died down, just because I think that it would be appropriate. Anyway, to make a long story short, shilling before we get to the video proper, Visions Beyond has been released. Go and buy it on my Bandcamp. I'm looking to hit 1K by the end of the year, so go and hit up that if you really think so. And if you really... Yeah, in any case, thank you so much for everything, and dang it, this is a bad intro, but enjoy the video. So, Reforge Gaming, or some people call him Jimmy Neutron. I'm not going to call him that because I'm just going to call him Mr. Reforge. So, Mr. Reforge here decided to go online and voice his opinion about a recent leak that certain games were going to go third party. Now, again, this is more of a rumor, not really a leak, so I guess that's a misinformation. So, you know what? I will stand corrected. It is a rumor that certain games were coming from Xbox, as well as there was a cancellation of another game that was in the works at some point for a Battle Royale Halo type game, that those plans kind of fell through. Now, again, to go over this very, very quickly, both of those situations happened about a week apart from each other-ish, so this is a little bit of an older clip, but Reforge Gaming gave his opinion on it, and then he got absolutely threatened, not threatened, but absolutely smoked out by the individuals that run a particular gaming website, journalism site thing, and yeah, I'm not going to throw the tweets here because it kind of gets into the point where that person was then eventually fired for whatever reason. In any case, as far as we can tell right now, Reforge Gaming is upset at gaming journalism for the fact that they, at least in terms of what he says, are reporting misinformation for whatever reason, and this is his salty response to the one outlet that kind of insulted him very badly.
Know how journalism works and are easily proven wrong by anyone with context clues from listening to actual journalists. Well, here's the thing. You can't lie if all you're doing is going to the public and saying, I was told this by two different sources. I'm not lying. That happened. Now, my sources could be wrong. They could be uninformed. They could be bums on the side of the street, and I'm just trying to clout grab, right? They could be anybody. But I'm just telling you.
Now, to be very clear here, what he's saying is not wrong. You can more or less say, hey, I found out this information from two sources, and citing your sources is important. However, you didn't really do that. The unfortunate thing about you and your sources is that you don't cite them, or at least it doesn't appear that you have cited them in any of the stuff that you have talked about. Now, again, in the clips that I have here, it's very limited information, so there might be more context here. But to break down your main point, yes, you still can lie and say that you actually did have these sources that may or may not exist. Yeah. Regardless of the number of sources that you may have said, or those sources that you may have talked about, it is still a rumor that these games are coming to different platforms. Now, again, this was before the whole interview with a bunch of, with some of the CFO stuff, and he kind of spilled a little bit more beans of something, so unsure. But overall, at least putting it in the context of this time, he merely just reported on the situation, saying that he has these two sources that may or may not exist. And that's one of the other big things as well. You could say, oh, these sources may not be the most reliable. That's if those sources even exist, which is what a lot of people would put into question. So it's not whether or not the sources are correct, it's whether or not those sources are real, and given the context of how you operate specifically, Mr. Reforge, people tend to not believe the things that you say because you say a lot of very not so good things. So
I heard this. Now, I don't have a history of coming into the public and saying, oh, I have a source, I have a source, I have a source, I have a source. I don't do that. My brand isn't built around that, okay? Maybe if your brand is built around that, you don't like other people, I don't know, being able to say that. But I had 2 sources that have been consistently right about stuff say something, and I relate.
it's not a problem that you did that. It's a problem that you are taking it as a problem in the sense that, well, you can't take criticism. Well, I've been criticizing you this entire time, and more often than not, you might have these sources, you might not have these sources. Now, again, what's also stupid is the sheer fact that you don't report your own news, technically, and your whole brand is not built on these sources, apparently, but that's not true at all. I can at least think of a few other times where you've said, hey, from these sources on these other sites. Regardless of whether or not that source itself is like a first-party known source, you still have to cite and you still use sources mainly in terms of gaming media outlets other times and read those out on stream and then talk about them, giving your own opinion. Now, verbatim, those are your sources, the sources of the people that are there in the gaming media that also cite their other sources. So you are taking a secondary or even tertiary source and claiming it to be that sort of source. That's what your whole brand apparently is, if you really want to break it down. Now, again, you might say that, oh, I give my own opinions and I don't rely on these sort of sources, but you are still reporting that those sources are correct, which, again, you don't cite them. You don't even give out any names. You don't even give out who they are or what they do. And I would also like to say, I don't think that this is even the third time. I distinctly remember another time before this when you also claimed the same thing, to have sources, yet gave none. So, pardon us for erring on the side of caution when it comes to talking about rumors and speculation.
That to the public, and apparently that's a really big problem.
Because you can lie very easily, and you gain everything from saying this because you gain both the negative and positive press.
Gee, I wonder why that is. Dr. Killshot with 17 months says, Lona, the only really trusted news source on YouTube. You don't have to remember the lies if you stick to your truth. If you stick to the truth, I think is what you meant to say. I don't buy into that your truth nonsense.
I mean, that is kind of true, but the truth is truth that it doesn't need your approval, meaning that you probably don't have these sources if you're not going to cite or even name them in this context. I mean, you could also argue, like, oh, well, you're going to give away their personal information. No, you can probably say 1 or 2 things, and it'll be fine and be very vague about it. Now, again, whether or not these sources exist is more or less the question at hand here, where you still haven't given us any substantial information or anything of that sort. You need to give us more substantial than there is a rumor that this sort of thing may or may not happen.
Truth is truth. Doesn't need your approval. So, my take on it's very simple. Right? I thought you'd wait before reporting on Halo. I reported the update this morning. I changed my thumbnail. I changed my title. I did. I immediately ran out of the studio and I changed my thumbnail and I changed my title and I updated my monologue. So I have the most up-to-date reporting on the Halo Battle Royale, and my theory is there will not be a Battle Royale, but Certain Affinity's still working on something. I believe they have gotten real information. Yes, the Battle Royale's canceled.
Okay, yeah, and again, that's more or less has been confirmed-ish, but whether or not they're working on the Battle Royale is not the important bit, because that has been reported on by multiple other sources. Again, one of, if not the biggest things here, is the question as to whether or not you have those sources. So, yeah, but correct assumptions in saying that that's kind of a thing that's not happening.
There will not be a Battle Royale. I think it's evolved into something else. So, as soon as I saw that this morning, I went and updated everything. Why? That's what we do. That was the lead story yesterday. Everybody was reporting on it. I grabbed a couple of articles. It seemed to be coming from people. Special Nick. It's coming from Special Nick. He's consistently gotten things right on Xbox. So it's like, you know, Of course, I'm not. I'm not going to just like run with it once we hear new information. I added all that into the monologue, and I changed the title. I added a question mark because it's like, is it canceled? They're not sure. So I took the question mark approach. It's like, okay, we will ask the question: has this been?
Okay, and that's basically that whole big clip there. Overall, that clip was more substantial, but at the same time, it didn't really say anything too bad. The most important thing here is the pure fact that he just seemingly got angry over the fact that that people claim that his sources were BS, and that overall he felt the need to defend himself in that context. Now, obviously, if you have actual sources and you can't list anything due to like NDA and stuff like that, sure, most definitely. But as some people have pointed out, you are merely just a talk show-ish channel on YouTube that doesn't really seem to have much in the way of anything substantial in terms of sponsorships and stuff. I mean, you have your own coffee brand out in the behind you, where it seems that you're trying to get people to give you more money for that. And if we've covered anything else previously on this channel, you'd love the fact that there are members out there who are just not going to be allowed to do things. And you don't like the fact that members themselves aren't giving you money, or like that non-members aren't giving you money, and that it's just... I go over this in a whole big rant on a different video where he practically insults anyone who's not a member and doesn't really want to deal with anyone in the public space. And let me be clear here, right? If you can't handle criticism as a content creator, you should not be a content creator, in my personal opinion. But now we're going to look at the second clip that I have here, which is of him talking about the recent Last of Us 2 remastered that came out on PlayStation rather recently, and its user score and things like that. Now, just for a quick refresh, if I remember correctly, the 97 is on the original Last of Us, that is The Last of Us Part 2. It's on the original Last of Us Part 2 from the PS4 and PS5, with the current score for the new remastered one being around a 90. And you might notice that that's a little bit of a step down, which I'm surprised it even got that much of a score highly because of the amount of stuff that's just not in this game. So, yeah, but again, that's my own personal opinion, but we're going to get into what Reforge thinks on the whole topic and situation.
And conclusions on this. Every time reviews trend really, really strongly in the positive, there is always someone who seemingly just breaks from the pack and then really drops the score. Okay, this thing went from like a 92 to then I think it dropped to a 91 because of the two mixed reviews, and then it dropped to a 90 because of that one negative review. When 70 outlets give it a positive rating, 2 give it mixed, and only 1 gives it a negative, and the score is a 40, an extremely low and failing grade, it's likely not a good faith review.
I mean, that's the context of the review is probably what's more important. One of the biggest things for at least a review of that nature, if they give it that low of a score, it might be a bad faith review. But, I mean, did you read it? Because I know I definitely didn't read it. I'd love to find it, though. I probably should. But even if it does have it that way, if you were to just look at it objectively, there's a lot the remaster that just doesn't feel good to have. Again, just talking about this very briefly, the remaster itself, when you look at it side by side with the original, it doesn't really do much. A lot of people don't realize, but like it's not that substantial of an upgrade. The only thing that it's really adding is the extra content on top of that. And one other thing that I find as an interesting result is that the God of War Ragnarok sequel, God of War, or not the sequel, but God of War Ragnarok got, I think, like Valhalla or something like that, where it's a full-on free mode for the game that adds in a whole bunch of content and doesn't really do much else. Whereas with this one, it just gets a little bit of a brush up, some extra content that seems to be unfinished, and that's it. Oh, and like a roguelike mode. Like, that's really all that you're getting for like the $10 upgrade-ish. And yeah, certainly, you heard me right, $10 upgrade might seem like it's pretty good of a deal, but you still have to purchase it. That's only if you already own The Last of Us Part 1. And yes, if you're buying The Last of Us Part... Or not The Last of Us Part 1, I mean The Last of Us Part 2. You know what I mean. I'm just getting them confused. But when you really sit down, it's just a $10 DLC and a rebrush. That's really it. It doesn't add anything else substantial. Like, that's the problem that a lot of people seem to have with it. That's the problem that I have with this. It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's a good game. It's okay. It got a lot of awards. Whoop-de-doo. But I also think that other games are way better and have more depth to their combat systems and things like that. But I will say, though, even the fact that it did get a 90, how was that a bad score? Like, it dropped it from 92 to 90, so that's not that far of a drop if you really think about it. But overall, all of those, like, super high reviews in the 80s and 90s and stuff, are they really, like, being actually genuine, whereas the 40s is probably seemingly more genuine? I would need to see the context of this more specifically, rather than you just saying, oh, was that a bad faith review?
They're likely hoping for clicks and attention by breaking for the group. So yes, breaking from the group. So yes, I do think it's fair to look at reviews and say, this is not a good review. It's almost as if we need someone to review game reviews sometimes to show you. There are certain reviews that are not worth your time. They're not giving you a clear picture of the product. And rating a remaster that is at the quality that it is, and the gaming community is responding the way that it is, rating it a 40, well, I can't call that honest.
I can, and I probably will, because in all honesty, yes, it does seem like 40 does seem to be a more appropriate score, but that's, again, my own personal opinion. Now, again, if I were to really rate down and sit down and actually rate the actual remaster and stuff, the only thing that I would have to say is that it's more The Last of Us Part 2. If you want it again, then go ahead and pay your $10. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone who's looking to purchase this game nowadays, because again, you can really just get the same experience if you just buy the older version. You don't need the like $80 to $90-ish. One of the biggest things as well that I recently found out is that you actually can't get it on PS4, at least not from Sony, from what I can tell. Now, again, this is unsubstantiated and seemingly a rumor, but I'm fairly certain if you check like well, maybe not unsubstantiated, but at the very least, someone took a couple screenshots of the PS5 and PS4 stores for Sony, where they apparently took it off the marketplace at some point, making it so that way you have to pay the $80 for the newer version. Unsure if they will upcharge you for the remastered version, or they will take off the regular version and just put on the remastered version. Unsure. But even if there is still the regular version that you can buy, and then the remastered version as well, that it's a separate purchase, that's still like $90 in total, technically speaking, if there's the two different versions that exist on the one platform. Again, unsure, so do feel free to 100% correct me in the comments. I'm always down to be corrected. But overall, one bad review got you this upset because it's a game in Sony for remastered. You are literally capping for Sony, and you wonder why people are calling you into question when you are saying that you have sources for a specific rumor. I'm fairly certain you can see why people criticize you in the way that they do Reforge. So yeah. In any case, I think that'll about do it for this episode of I Ran Into a Microphone for whatever reason. My name is GamePenguin21. Like I said at the top of the video, if you want to support me in any way, shape, or form, looking to hit 1K by the end of the year, please hit me with that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Likes and comments are always fun and always good to engage with. And of course, if you want to check out my music, Visions Beyond is out this week, coming out on Bandcamp and stuff, and also coming out on this channel if you want to take a listen to it. I do make music sometimes. I'm also making a single as well eventually that will probably be released in a couple of months, just making sure that I'm getting everything my ducks in a row. I also have a couple of other albums that I'm working on, so do not worry if you like my music. Again, always check the description because that's always where you can find my Bandcamp and stuff like that. In any case, thank you so much for watching. My name is GamePenguin21, and a peace off.